Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. Today is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, and this is episode 53. You can reach us at our email, which is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. You can also find us on, we have a private Facebook page. If you send us a request, we'll add you to it. It's 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings Podcast. You can find us on Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, several other major platforms. And I'm super excited about the guest we have tonight. We have Katie P. coming all the way from Austin, Texas. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
I was just looking at the last time. Let's see. The last time we met it was June 11th. Yeah, you did step 10. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, summertime gets crazy busy for me, you know, between my kids and grandkids and traveling in AA. And then, of course, we had the international. And, oh, my God, that was such a blast.
Did you go?
It was, yes, I did.
Nice.
Yes. Charlie and I were really big about going. I think he went to one before he and I got together. And then we went to Toronto and in 2005, and everywhere. Detroit, of course, getting canceled was just a bummer. But we that is just right in our wheelhouse.
Nice. Yeah. My sponsor and a bunch of people, several people from my home group went. I wasn't able to go this year. I think I'm gonna shoot at going. What is it? St. Louis next time?
Yeah, St. Louis.
Yeah. Super excited about that.
Yeah. Should be great.
Great. So how's everything's good with family? You got family in town?
Oh my God, my grandkids are 18 and 2 13-year-olds that are cousins. So we're loaded with teenagers. I always tell people when they have kids, never forget they will be teenagers. That is a very challenging age. They're every different. 0 to 10, 10 to 20. They're just challenging, but we have a blast and laugh a lot. But I'm also not raising them, so I get the fun part of the grandkids.
There you go.
Oh my God, we went to Schlitterbahn. That is a water park that's connected to the Comel River, and it is freezing cold water. And we went every year when my kids were little, and hadn't been there in a long, long time. And oh my God, 67 years old, shooting down those tubes. At one point, I thought, "Holy smokes, this is okay." First, is my bathing suit still on, and secondly, oh my God, is my neck, my hip? I mean, by the time we were done, my son-in-law's glasses were all cocked off. I was like, "Holy smokes!" I went, "Geez, I don't remember this thing being so aggressive." And April's like, "Mom, you're a few years older than you were." This is very true. Thank you for that. Identifying that. Yes, I am. I'm a bit older, but we had such a blast.
Nice.
Such a blast. We walk in the park when it first opened, and then we closed the park, and that's the way our family always did it. We just had so much fun.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's cool. That's awesome. Nice. And how about speaking? Have you been doing any retreats or anything here recently?
Yeah, I do. I did. I was upstate New York, and where did I go? Where have I been? I've been to a lot of places. I've actually been really much more active than I anticipated. I flew out to Toronto the weekend before the international and did Ollie's Fellowship of the Spirit, which was just it's just a great layout that he does. I was with Jimmy or Jillian and Paula, and we just had so much fun. The thing that I love about these deals is we laugh so hard. I mean, we are so fortunate. I mean, we go through tough times and tragedies and all of that stuff, but we also have so much fun. And I've just always just been so blessed with always laughing a lot. Charlie and I are we were always real entertainer types. It's like, let's do the unity of AA. Let's do what we're supposed to do here and, have fun while we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So there was a lot. I think I'm going to Phoenix and, Phoenix and San Antonio and just all around. There's all kinds of different conferences going on at all times.
Yeah.
We're so lucky.
Very cool. Well, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up on here too. A lot of, I've been talking to Jimmy. I've talked to him several times about trying to get him on here. I love Jimmy. Yeah.
Oh, Jimmy is so great. He and Mary Beth, I mean, they are solid AA folks.
Yeah. And New Jersey, right? Yeah.
New Jersey, right? And that's where Chad is. So we've kind of lost Chad to New Jersey for a while at least.
I didn't realize he was up there.
Oh yeah, he's in New Jersey.
Okay.
And he's a boy from Oklahoma in New Jersey, silly boy.
Nice. Well, cool. Sounds like you've been busy. That's awesome. I'm glad we've managed to get some time together to do this.
No kidding.
This has been exciting.
No kidding. Well, we started off just on fire, and then, summer came, and boy, my schedule got crazy. And so I am really excited to be back in, and we're doing the 11th step. And
yes, ma'am.
And so I'm really ready to rock and roll whenever you are.
I'm ready when you are. Yeah, we're doing step 11. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because, step 10 and 11 are just like hand in glove, if you ask me. I mean, you can't talk about one without talking about the other because they just all go together, right? The 10 steps, that practice of watch. And I can't even begin to tell you what a fulfilling practice that it has been for me in 40 years sober. I don't think you have to wait 40 years to get it, but for whatever reason, I got it at 40 years. And I have a theory. You've been in AA a while, you've seen a lot, and you get to, present yourself with ideas of maybe this or maybe that. And I think that when you're mature, because if you got 40 years, you're not going to be 50, right? You're going to probably be in your 60s, maybe even 70s, and depending upon when you got sober. So you put your age of sobriety and your physical age together, and you're somebody who has seen a lot in life, period. I mean, that's just, you can't deny that. And so because of that, you're also looking at mortality, right? Because typically, in your 40s, you're not thinking about, you're going to be dying in maybe 40 more years. And in your 50s, you start to maybe look at some of that. But in your 60s, late 60s, 70s, you're clearly looking at mortality. And it's not like I'm looking about dying, but I'm just looking about, okay, let's say I got another 20 years, which would be me dying at 87, which is not a stretch. So if I've got my last 20 years to look at, I'm going to look at them with a whole different set of lenses on than I did in my 40s because it's real. And because of that, I think that the term watch for resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, and fear has become alive to me. I'm doing a piece of work. You never stop doing the work, that's for sure. And it's a little close to home for me. I don't have Charlie with me. I'm a little nervous, to say the least. And what this particular individual who was helping me do the work said is, she said, "You know what, Katie?" I said, "I'm afraid I'm not going to see what God wants me to see." And she says, "Trust the watch." And I don't know why that day that did it. I mean, it once again trajected me into a different perspective of the way I look at things. And so I'm telling you, every time I turn around, I see something different. And this heightened awareness of the watch has been profound for me. And I don't want to make it seem like you have to be a certain age and a certain amount of sobriety and you have to do this, but those are the things that enhanced it. And so, you just have a different than if you're 36 and 3 years sober. Your energy is not going to be looking at mortality, been around a while, kids are grown. You got to take all the aspects of your life kind of in and look at it and then see where it lands. But
Wow.
10 step being the whole watch for resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, fear, and the 4 things we're to do when we watch for these. And then by the end of the day, we are to look at our, look at our day, right? And here's a tricky part of why I think, and this is just my opinion, but it's a podcast, so I can share more opinion on podcasts.
Heck yeah.
I think, however, in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 10th step has been very misunderstood. And I misunderstood it. Let's keep in mind, I thought it was the evening review and I wasn't doing it anyway. So let's be very clear. I'm not judging anybody for what they thought about the 10th step. But I think that the 10th step is misunderstood because where they put the 11th step in the big book. Yeah. So if you don't pay attention to the 10th step, and what it's saying, the directions in the big book, and you take the 10th step off the wall, it's talking about continuing with inventory. And then the evening review, or the 11th step, page 85, bottom of page 85, it's the 2 lines that say, step 11, suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It'd be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions, period. Then it says when we retire at night. Yeah. So if you just read the bottom of page 85, it suggests prayer and meditation, just like it says on the wall. So it's so easy to misunderstand the 10th step because the evening review is clearly the 11th step. I never even saw it until I was 17 years sober. So I have no judgment on that. And I was telling Steve Lee, he and I had a disagreement, and neither of us was going to agree. I can tell you that. And I told him, I said, I also think the 12 and 12 muddied the waters a little because in the 10th step, in the 12 and 12, it has all the many different inventories we do, from the 4-step inventory to the 10th step inventory to the evening review inventory. Yeah. And the very last page of the 10th step in the evening, in the 12 and 12, it's talking about the evening review. And so that's the other place I think people misunderstood the 10th step. So it's on tape till the day I die and afterwards. So that's my opinion. I would never share that at a conference because it's way too much time eating it up. But I really believe that as long as you're doing the evening review, and the on awakening, you've nailed the 11th step. But if you're not doing the 10th step where you're watching, you are missing a big piece of work. And so, the 11th step I'm not worried about. The 10th step is the one I think gets lost in the wash. Amen. But so it says when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Well, first it's telling me about this proper attitude, right? This proper attitude we must take in to the evening review. And what is that proper attitude? I think it's the attitude on page 55. Bill loved using the word attitude, and it never landed on me till it landed on me. And attitude is everything. And if you've ever raised kids and you're going into a fun amusement park and they got a bad attitude, they can suck the fun out of everything, right? They're just mopey, popey, dragging. They got a bad attitude. Well, this attitude the book is talking about, it says it's on page 55. Now, it's really asking a lot in this particular paragraph. It says, we can only clear the ground a bit. Well, that's fair enough. So you're not asking me to dig a deep hole. You're just saying, just clear the ground a little bit. Let's just start looking at this. Let's figure out this is the beginning and the end. This is just an attitude we're going to take in with us. It says, if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice. So this is what we're trying to help you with, is for you to sweep away your judgment, because that's what we suffer from, right? That's almost what we agnostics is completely about. Yeah. It finally says even against organized religion, but it just says we have a prejudice of everything. Prejudice on driving, the way they set up a grocery store, the laws that are in the world, the taxes are not fair. I mean, we have an opinion on everything. Yeah. And if you really watch, you filter through a pretty dark spot up there. And then it says, enable you to think honestly, which would kind of lend itself to thinking maybe we don't even think honestly. I mean, what is honest thinking? I don't know. I suffer from a delusional mind. So I can see something. I can tell myself I know exactly what that is. I believe it, and I've got no facts to back it up. Not a fact one, but by golly, I saw it and I know what it means. And that's another problem that we have with alcoholism. And then it says encourage you to search diligently within yourself. So it's asking me to have the courage to go deeper. That's a big ask. And that's the attitude that we're talking about here when it says if you have the proper attitude and work at it.
Nice.
So you get somebody that gives you a roadblock when you're trying to help them in the steps. Well, I don't work well with that at all. First of all, if you argue during the step work, have any sort of retaliatory reaction towards it, we stop the work right there. And I just go, you know what? Go back and think about this a little bit longer, because I'm not going to sit here and argue with you.
Yeah.
Either you're willing to do this work or you're not. But I will not go down that road. I've only had that happen twice in about 30 years. And both people, I'm still working with them, and they changed their attitude, but they needed to.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. It either you want freedom or you don't want freedom.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the beautiful line that says, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. And constructively means in a way that is useful, right? We have to do it in a way that is useful, or else we're not benefiting ourselves or anyone else. So constructively is a pretty powerful word, and Bill uses it quite a few times in the book. And it says, where were we? And there's the four things: resentful, selfish, dishonest, and afraid. I don't like to just say, I was. It says, where were we? So when I'm really looking at my day, and let me tell you, I used to do my evening review in the morning, and I bought a lot of time with that. Well, I can't do that anymore. I don't know what goes on in the brain of the elderly, but I got no bandwidth. I can remember maybe right before I went to bed, but I cannot go all the way back to yesterday, all the way in the morning. So what I started doing, and this is kind of tricky, because the phone is a very unique item, right? If I go looking for text, I get down 9 rabbit holes with 6 other texts that I saw, and I forget what the original purpose was.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I look at my call list, because I'm much more of a caller than a texter, and I write everybody's name down from my call list and what we did, because there are some people I said, I'll pray for you, and I'm not going to pray for you if I don't remember it right afterwards. I mean, right after I might throw a prayer at you, but I'm not going to really pray for you like I said I would. And then all the other things that were in there. And I mean, it makes for a very full evening review.
Wow.
And then I look through my text, and I got to be very careful there, and my emails, but I've pretty much covered my bases on what I did for the day if I get all of that down on paper. And then I take about 10, 15 minutes to really go through it and just kind of absorb it, because yesterday is going to look a whole lot like tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to look a whole lot like the next day. It's not like we're that crazy of creatures that every day is going to be radically different than the day before. I mean, you got kids, you're going to get them up, you're going to get them to school, you're going to pick them up from school, you're going to go to work. That we're pretty much creatures of habit. So, we're not asking you to do a whole lot other than just review the day. And then it goes into, do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should have been discussed with another person at once? There's the drunk trap that Bill put in there. It's basically saying, did you do a 10 step? You were supposed to be watching for these things, and when they crop up, ask God to remove it. Talk to somebody immediately, right? The 10 step is telling us we need each other. I need a set of eyes on me so you can hear me say what bugs me. I've been bugged twice in the last week to where, I was making 10-step calls because, if it rattles around in my head very long, I'm calling somebody. I got to have a different take on this. And the beauty of that is I can almost always walk it through inventory verbally and see that I'm the hypocrite before I even get to that 4th column. Between the 3rd and 4th column of a resentment inventory, right, is the sick man prayer. Yeah. And I could be either person in this play. But when it's being done to me, I am completely justified in resenting you. But if I'm the other person, I do it a different way. and that's kind of the beauty of what this is doing, right?
Yeah.
It says, were we kind and loving towards all? Well, I can tell you the answer is no to that. I'd love to say I am, but I can promise you when I'm driving, I am not kind and loving. I am. If you ever had a conversation when I'm in the car, you will see clearly that I drive better than everybody else. Nobody drives as good as I do. I always have that tricky thing. My grandson's pulling up, so the dog might bark and he may stick his head in, but we'll just keep rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And then it says, what could we have done better? What a fair question. At the water park, I behaved poorly. Let's put it this way. A kid behaved poorly. I decided to tell the kid he behaved poorly, and his mother was on me. And let me tell you, it did not go well. This was a teenage boy. And I thought, it was the very first time in my life that I really thought, you know what? I've been taking the high road for 15 years. I needed to have taken this before I let this accelerate to this point. And thank goodness I had the bandwidth to basically say, look, buddy, if what I said to you offended you, I truly apologize. And what I said was not anything that was offensive, but I thought I'm taking the high road here. And his whole demeanor changed. And I thought, there it was.
Wow.
Just walk away. And I walked away. And my daughter's like, Mom, what was happening over there? Oh, my God, April, that could have gotten terribly out of hand. Terribly. The old Katie 20 years ago, I would have been arrested, hands down, arrested. I would have not been like a dog on a bone,
Wow.
and anybody that's listening to this podcast knows exactly what I'm saying. There's a time in your sobriety that you were so off the chain that, when it's the man on page 73, which says, we hope no one saw our behavior.
Yeah.
And that's the guy that's not working his AA program. I'd love to say everybody in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is nailing it. They're not.
Yeah.
I talk to too many people.
Amen.
Yeah, they're not.
I love the concept of taking the high road, and also, it goes into like, what we're talking about in 10. Like if you're not watching and, have enough space going on and awake and aware as you're going through it, it'll happen without you even realizing it's happened. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the key
Absolutely.
to it. Yeah.
And I tell you, the high road, I had no idea. Like my one sponsee, forgive me, I'll use a little bit of a dark word. My sponsee called me, and she's cut from the same cloth I am, and she goes, "My God, Katie, there's no assholes on the high road." I went, "I know, I couldn't believe it. It's like it's all a bunch of good people up there." And and to me, it was like, oh my God, and how I did not take the high road yesterday. No one in this equation of us three getting ready to literally throw down, and I kid you not, throw down, was the shocking moment of, how did I get myself in this predicament?
Yeah.
I should have saw that kid's look on his face, turned the other cheek, and walked away. And I didn't. I went back in. I thought, hey, brother, no punk kid's going to look at me like that when you were the one that was out of line. And when I did that, I did not see his mama standing there, and she was not having any of it.
Yeah.
And he had to be 16. I thought, I have replayed the scenario in my head 1,000 times. That what would have gotten me, punched in the face, because she was the kind of chick that would have taken a swing. It would have either gotten me punched in the face or in handcuffs, and it would not have been worth the whole thing. There was a time 20 years ago that would have been worth it in the moment. I would not have made the decision I made to walk away. And her husband was leaning up against the wall, and he goes, "You ought to leave." And I thought, oh my God, this has gotten so bad so fast.
Wow.
And these guys were dark-looking characters. Let's just put it that way. They looked like they could rob a bank with no problem. I had facial tattoos and slicked back hair, and I thought, okay, I am definitely dancing in the wrong camp here.
Wow. Yeah.
But I swear to God, I never even saw the whole goddamn family. Even then, if I'd have seen the family, I would have realized it was probably not the safest environment to step into, but I didn't.
Wow.
And that's the kind of stuff that it's been on me for since yesterday. I've written inventory on it, a fear inventory and everything, and it's like, wow, I am shocked that I did not take the high road. I don't know if I could throw out ideas, maybe because I had my kids around and my grandkids and I needed to protect them. And I don't know what the heck was going on with me, but it was stupid. And I really put myself in harm's way. And, it would only be myself that I could blame for anything of that. I could get a whole bunch of people to agree that she was out of line. She shouldn't have stepped in. The kid shouldn't have done what he didn't matter. I
Yeah.
could have walked past all of that stuff and not felt like, justice must be served. And I put the sheriff's badge on and it was too rusty. I was out of my game. I have not done that in so long. But, the thing that I love about this evening review and this On Awakening is I came home, I made a phone call, I wrote a piece of inventory, and I would love to tell you I was free from it, but I wasn't because it scared me really bad. I mean, it was the closest I've come to a physical altercation with someone in a long, long time. And I have been in circumstances because I'm pretty spicy chick. I have never been hit in my life, but that code could have been broken yesterday because that mother she had it in her, and I did not. So it's kind of like honestly, if I would run into them again, I think I would have gone up and apologized for having started that beef and taken the high road. But I didn't do that either because it says, in the questions, do we owe an apology? Well, he started it, but is that really where I'm going to get freedom? No, I'm not going to get freedom from that. I'm going to get freedom from taking the high road. And that's, live and learn and everything. But I love that it tells me this warning. It says, but we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. And I did. I drifted into all of that yesterday. And you'd think, why? Because it's going to make me feel bad? No, for that would diminish my usefulness to others. So while I was at the park, I was way into worry, remorse, and morbid reflection. So if I would have run in them, could I have shaken the hand? Possibly. But it's not because of how it would make me feel. It would diminish my usefulness to others to see that I could step out of that and do something different. It was a very serious piece of work yesterday.
Wow.
And you just look at it, and then it says after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures, right? Able to correct is what corrective measures mean, should be taken. And I'll tell you what, I had a very deep on awakening with God this morning about it. I wrote the evening review and it made it yesterday. And this morning I was deep into it. And then as the God of my understanding would have it, I love Jesus Calling. And I opened it, I believe it was July 26th. I wrote it on my love letter to God this morning. And it said, be careful that we don't step in the dark path.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I did. I stepped in the dark path. When I turned around and walked back to that kid, I should have just kept on walking. And the whole thing in Jesus Calling talked about the danger of doing that. And it was almost like I had the Creator sitting there holding my hand saying, let's keep talking about it.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this.
Powerful.
So I've always been interested in this line. Kind of something you just mentioned made me think of this. So, sorry I cut you off.
No. Please go. But
right there where it says, we ask his forgiveness. I've always been interested in that, right? But then like you had just mentioned, like, maybe it's like it's asking for me to forgive, like the fact that I was separated from him or whatever, and I was trying to do it on my own. What's your take on that? I'm curious.
That's what my take is.
Yeah.
When we ask God's forgiveness, it is because I stepped into self all over me.
Yeah.
All every which way. I knew the minute I turned around, when that kid didn't move out of my way, I knew right then when I turned and looked at him and he gave me that F-you look. And let me tell you, he knew how to do that F-you look like nobody's business. Had Charlie been with me, I don't think he'd have looked that way. But because I was I could go into comments, but I'm going to leave them off this. The type of person I am, the line I was in, and where I was going set this stage to have some sort of, we don't like those people.
Yeah.
And when I had that brief moment that I did not need to walk back in, and that's what I'm asking forgiveness for.
Gotcha.
Please forgive me for not looking at that kid as one of your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Amen.
was one of your kids, and they didn't have they may have had a party afterwards, but I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think any of them felt good with public display of two mothers screaming well, she was screaming at me, and I just kept saying, wow, this has accelerated way faster than I anticipated it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, Jesus, a swing is at first the spit coming out your mouth in my face is really getting ready to push me over the edge. But see what I did? I did all of that by walking back up to that kid.
Mm.
I set the entire ball rolling. I'd love to say he did when he didn't move.
Mm.
He didn't see me walking up.
Mm.
And then when he didn't see me walking up, I was more abrupt with how he needed to move out of the line
Mm.
because he was leaning into my line, and my line, I couldn't get past him without him moving. But I could have just kept walking,
Yeah.
which is what I've done for the last 15 years and just been blown away at how freeing it is. And for whatever reason, I stepped on that twig and it snapped and it did not go well.
Mm.
And you know what would have really been tragic? Oh, gosh, I'm playing this whole thing out. What really would have been tragic is my daughter lived through that life with me in untreated alcoholism where I threw down on every fight. Every fight didn't matter. You cut me off. We shoot each other the finger. We're in a road rage. I mean, I was off the chain crazy, off the chain crazy. And she was watching me.
Wow.
And had that woman taken a swing at me, that would have brought back, and that's the little baby girl that was 5 when I got sober, that would have brought back all that shit.
Mm.
And I mean, the damage it could have done. And I didn't walk away. I did not walk away. I didn't even know she was watching me. But when I came back over to her, when I'd gotten what I needed to get and came back over, she goes, what was happening? And I thought, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I said, let's just keep walking. I said, it was not good. And so we're walking, and she wants to ask all kinds of questions, and I'm too scared this family might be following me. I mean, somebody's going to jail. That's all I can tell you. It was that bad. Wow. Somebody was going to jail. That's not me making that up. But you see what I mean? It was so beautiful, and I wasn't even thinking we're going to be doing the evening review today. You know what I mean? And my evening review and On Awakening were so calming. And I told my daughter, I said, look, I don't want to keep telling this story because this story is really, it's a good story to tell in AA, but amongst our family members, it brings back a lot of pain for me of how much trouble I caused the world with me in it.
Wow.
And the common denominator was me. And I think if people that are in untreated alcoholism, when they wake up, that is a tough pill to swallow at how we show up stone cold sober in recovery. Wow. We may look great in the rooms, but trust me, out in the world, we are not showing up good. And really losing our shit behind the counter, and all the things that we do. Yeah. And the other part is that I love is how this book lays it out so beautifully. It tells us when to take the step, how to take the step, and why to take the step. I mean, it just couldn't be any clearer, but you do need to have somebody teach it to you because it's a hard book to just read and get.
Amen.
I mean, some people that can read and get it. I'm not that person. I need it to be taught to me. I do not hand me a book and tell me how to do it. I mean, teach me how to do it, but do not expect me to read the book, right? Yeah. And then, it drifts so beautifully into On Awakening, right? We take all of this into On Awakening. We be careful not to worry, remorse, and morbid reflection. We ask for, corrective measures. Oh my gosh, how could I have done this differently? Please let me have learned from this crucial mistake I made yesterday. I don't want to beat myself up. I was playing the scenario of what I could have said and I could have done, and it did not play out well in my head. It was like, oh no, stop that. Put the pen to paper. Get out of your head with this thing and really get to compassion for that family. I don't know what happened in that family, but they certainly did not like me and my type. Let me just leave it at that. And I represented something that they did not like, and vice versa. It didn't go well. We were from two different schools and two different, histories. So That was what it was. But I'll tell you, the other piece of this was when I go into On Awakening. That's the part that got me, because in my On Awakening, the way I think you need to make these evening review and On Awakening so personal. You got to cover all the bases that the book is telling us. Where were we? Resentful, dishonest, selfish, and afraid, and all of those things. We do need to ask the basic questions, but we have to make this our dance. What works best for me? And I think it needs to be spiced up, changed, all kinds of stuff in 10 and 11. You
Sure.
got to just beef it up, mainly 11, but On Awakening, I like to look at it as I take 3 tablets, right? So I've got my evening review with my corrective measures on it. I'm going to take that into On Awakening, because my yesterday looks a lot like today, and today is going to look a lot like tomorrow. It's just the nature of how we are. We're not that crazy of creatures. We're just creatures of habit.
Huh.
And, I'm going to probably have the same lunch I had yesterday. I'm going to probably drive the same track I drove to work, that kind of thing. And then the second pad I have is the to-do list, because it tells me I'm to look at my 24 hours ahead.
Yeah.
So I want to look at my 24 hours ahead, because it's going to look a lot like yesterday. But what do I have to do? And then I write that down on the to-do list, because I don't know about you, but if I keep stuff in my head, I'm not going to remember to do it.
Yeah.
I have to take a to-do list. And the reason I take a to-do list is because I'm going to ask later on in the day. It says we pause when agitated or doubtful, right? So I'm more doubtful these days than I am agitated. And my doubtfulness is, do I run by Target before I go see my grandson at lunch at school? Or do I wait till after? Because I believe, and I heard this new term this past weekend from Julie, Chad's girlfriend, is divine appointment.
Yeah.
And I so believe that is so true.
Yeah.
Even to the guy that pulls up next to me at the red light. Can I look over and smile at him?
Yeah.
Can I wave at the grass guys cutting the grass? You'd be surprised at how many people will wave at me. I'm a big waver. That was huge in my generation. Now everybody's looking at their phone, but I'll do it anyway. I'm going to still wave at you.
Nice.
And smile at people and just try to get some encouragement there, right?
Yeah.
And then the third pad is my love letters to God. That I'm writing my love letter. I start with the God of my understanding, which I call Father God. Somebody, you might call it Great Spirit, whatever you want to call your higher power. And then you write the love letter to him, and then you take a few minutes, and then you write the response back as to what he would say to you, he, she, it, whatever floats your boat. But mine is always, Father God, and then when he writes back to me, it's my child. And then you just let that pen run. You don't think, you just let it run. So those love letters are profoundly powerful.
Wow, that's awesome.
And they are spectacular. And it says, when it talks about let us think about our 24 hours ahead, it wants you to think about your entire day, not just your morning.
Yeah.
It wants you to think through that. Are you going to be at work with the guy that bugs the crap out of you? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It wants you to really consider your plans. And then it says, now, before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Now, think about that. It doesn't say we ask God to direct our thinking because we're such swell people. We're just going to be too kind to everyone. We are always so into self. And I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way, but if you don't think you're into self, start asking some of the people, and pick 3 people that love you and will tell you the truth, and ask them, what are the things I do that bug you?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you'll be shocked. You'd be really shocked at what they're going to say. But if you're prepared to ask that question, you got to be prepared to listen to the answer with no rebuttal. And I'll never forget a man in Canada. We were at a workshop. It was about 200 people. And some of those ones that are that big, you don't get quite as much personal, intimate time with people. And he came up to me and he said, look, I just, I love my family and I'm interested in that, asking that question. And I said, okay, I'll tell you this is how you do it. And I just gave him the directions. You got to pick, maybe your son and your daughter, take them into separate rooms, sit them down and say, I really want you to think about this and tell me 3 things that if I could change, I would do it for you. And then be prepared to hear it, and you don't get to say anything. And I mean, he came back the next day, and I'd totally forgotten that we'd even talked. And he said, I did what you asked. And I went, for real?
Wow.
And he said, yes, I did. And then his eyes watered up, and he didn't boo-hoo cry, but he was definitely moved to tears. And he said, I was blown away at what they asked me to do.
Mm.
And I said, well, I am so impressed that you did that.
Wow.
What a huge, you talk about a nudge from God, that he heard it, he felt it, and he did it. Big deal.
Powerful.
Big deal.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, it was such a moving moment for me. And that's the kind of stuff that I absolutely just love. That if he's the only one in that room
Yeah.
that did something different, big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal. And I'm just so proud of that. That's the beauty of what these workshops do, what people that are coming to see the difference of what we do. And my dog wanted out. Now she's going to bark. But it's kind of it's just so special when you get that moment with somebody, and we all get that in AA.
Yeah.
You're at the coffee pot and somebody needs you to talk to you. That kind of stuff is just so, we never know when God is going to do divine intervention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's more often than not.
It's cool. Like I've experienced that quite a bit with this podcast. Like I'll there's people that reach out to me all the time, and I'll hear like a week later or the following day or whatever, someone say, "Oh man, I just took this suggestion, and wow," and they'll start sharing experiences with me. It's like, wow.
Oh, I bet you get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, and look, it's because, anytime we put ourselves in a service position,
Yeah.
I know we do it with sponsorship and all of that, but anytime we put ourselves in a service position, amazing things happen.
Yeah.
And does it require a sacrifice? Sure does. You're not going to get something for nothing.
Yeah.
It's going to require a sacrifice. I mean, you do these podcasts, you're willing to take this time. Some days are better than others, but the gift back is remarkable.
Yeah.
Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, that traveling on the road and all that. Oh, it's tough. Don't get me wrong.
I bet.
It's also spectacular.
Yeah. I bet.
We got to meet you. So,
Yeah.
how in the world would we ever have been at the same meeting at the same time to meet as many, it kind of requires gatherings,
Yeah.
just big gatherings.
Yeah. So it was awesome.
But then it goes into under these conditions, right? That means state of mind. We can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. And I love that. Under these conditions, what conditions are those? The ones we just laid out. The ones we need you to look at your day. We need you to go deeper, not just see what a swell guy you are, but we need to see some of the flaws in our makeup that cause these errors so that we don't continue barreling through life.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, Charlie was never very good at the Sprint store. He was not good at the Sprint store. I wouldn't even go in there with him because he was just a real pill at the counter. And he's a big guy. And he said he'd roll up like a gorilla. And he would just, oh, good Lord. And then he lost his mind one day. I wasn't there. And he stepped away from the counter, and this guy kind of smiled at him, and he smiled at him. He goes, oh, they kind of got me worked up. And he goes, did you see me get my 90-day chip? And Charlie was like, oh my God, he didn't even recognize the guy.
That's funny.
He said, buddy, you're getting ready to watch an amends in progress. Now, I guarantee my husband may not have made that amends had that guy not said the 90-day chip. But he did, because it's almost like God giving us a wink. We got eyes on you.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We got eyes
That's
on you.
awesome.
Oh my God, and then it says our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives.
Yeah.
So you can't just clear a wrong motive, right? You have to do the work to clear the motive. It's like people, and this is just tacky on my part, but I'm going to say it. I'm in very good shape for 67 years old. I was in the fitness business for 30 years. I did it for a living. I exercise 12 hours a week. That's what we do. And, for 30 years, so I'm going to be in pretty good shape, and it's a part of my life. And so people ask me, so what do you do? And I thought they were really interested in what I do. So I go go through the beginning of my week and by the end of my week and what I do and everything like that. And lo and behold, I realize they don't really care. They don't really care. Their eyes glaze over halfway through it. So I just finally started saying, more than you're willing to do. And Charlie goes, well, that's pretty direct. I go, well, you know what? I had too many glazed over eyes. I thought that's just what we're going to leave it at that. But that's the same thing with these promises, right? We have to trust that our mind's cleared of wrong motives. I've got this motive that you really want to hear what my beginning of my week looks like until I'm done with my end of my week. But you're not. You're just kind of saying, what do you do? And if they could have kindly said, oh, that's more than I'm willing to do, then I would have just not done it. But instead, I just jumped to the finish line. And that's the beauty of our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane. Our thinking will be cleared of wrong motives. So that's, there's a lot being said in this 11th step. And it says, now this is in thinking about our day. So we're still in prayer and meditation time. And this is in thinking about our day. We may face indecision because I'm looking at my day. It says here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision, and then we relax and take it easy. So if I had a bad day yesterday at work, well, I'm going to be going back into that work environment, and I know who I had a bad day with, and that's what it's talking about during prayer and meditation. So it's very important to understand when the book here is talking about while we're still in prayer and meditation and when we go out into the world. It says the right answer will come if our own house is in order. And let me tell you, that's true. You have to have your house in order. Mark was the one who said, I said, Mark, I can't get 10 and 11 working for me, man. Every day I go at it. I try to get it done. I cannot get it done. I'm so frustrated. And he looked at me and paused and he said, Katie, he goes, you're a fitness professional. He said, take the same discipline into it. And I swear to God, it was like, what? He goes, take the same discipline. Well, let me tell you, I don't want to work out every day. I do like the benefits of it, but I don't want to do it. And now when I was teaching jazzercise, I loved it. I absolutely loved my career. There was not one bad day in 30 years, ever. One time I was pregnant with Sam, and it was 4:00 in the afternoon, and I remembered thinking I just wanted to sleep. But after class, I felt great. It was just remarkable. But that's what he's talking about. So I took 10 and 11, just like I do with my discipline with fitness. And it absolutely changed my life. So I tell people, whatever you are disciplined in, and I don't care if it's cleaning the house, if you're disciplined in cleaning your house, take that same discipline into 10 and 11. Figure out somewhere in your life where you're disciplined, because all of us have something that we are disciplined on. Yeah. If it's picking my kid up at school every day, take that same discipline into 10 and 11. It will come together. Yeah. So you just have to find that, Yeah. Then I love it says what used to be a hunch or an occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of our mind. It absolutely will. We have to rely on this. I always like to mention that that's such a promise. Is that your experience? If it's not, I promise we can get you to it. Yeah. And then, it gives us a warning, because every step does. Being still in experience and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. And here comes the warning. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd thoughts and actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We become to rely upon it. So sometimes those great ideas turn out to be, absurd actions and ideas. Yeah. So we got to take the good with the bad and learn from it. And then I love this. Charlie just loved acronyms way before acronyms became a big deal. And he calls it PARS, right? It's the spiritual gift. Pause, ask, remind, and say. Now, this is when we're out in the day. So there's a big difference between when we're in prayer and meditation and when we are out in the day. So pause, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Now, like I said, I'm much more doubtful these days than I am agitated. So pause when I'm agitated or doubtful. Ask for the right thought or action, constantly reminding ourselves we're no longer running the show. humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will, not mine, be done.
I love
Now,
that.
think about how many times a day you say, thy will, not mine, be done.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 7 years ago, I said it once,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not, but I am talking to God. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
not saying thy will be done.
yeah.
I am saying, oh, God, guide me on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Guide me on this one.
It's funny because like when I'm going through like pretty troubled situations, I don't necessarily say those exact words, but like I'll kind of
Yeah.
I'll try to like submit to, or I say submit for lack of a better word, to that position.
Yes.
You get what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I realize I'm going to screw this whole thing up if I don't have some kind of help.
Absolutely. I'm telling you. And thank God we've got that brief pause button to at least ask.
Yeah.
Because once again, the ask and then the watch. And watch the way this whole thing comes about.
Yeah.
Here's another warning, right? Then we are in much less danger of, listen to these things: excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a foolish decision I made. I'm telling you, I went with fear, foolish decision. We become much more effective. We do not tire so easily, for we're no longer burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. And that's the beauty. On page 62, it said it didn't work.
Yeah.
And now it says all the way over here on the, end of the 11th step, it works. It really does.
Yeah.
And then another warning: the alcoholic are undisciplined. We let God discipline us in this simple way we've just outlined. I mean, that is so profound.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The 10th step, the idea of watching for selfishness, not waiting, is so much different.
Yeah.
And then you take it and you've got some real meat on the bone in your evening review. If you're young enough and sharp enough to remember your day, rock on. I am not. There's nowadays, with all the technology we have, there's too many ways to communicate. And I'm communicating with people that I just communicated via text with somebody, said I couldn't do it, and they were not happy with my response. And I thought, well, I was just telling you why. So I'm sorry about that. And I'm not a fan of communicating through that stuff. It looks curt and smart ass if you're not careful. And any sort of texting and stuff like that. I'm much more of talking, but that the whole world doesn't see it the way I see it. So I have to abide by how they're going to communicate.
Yeah.
There's a thing I like, is like, the mind is like water. When it's turbulent, it's cloudy. When it's calm, it becomes clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me is so important for me to see things like that. And we can't violate spiritual principle without paying a price for it.
Wow.
Spiritual principle is out there, like it or not.
Yeah.
I had no business taking that kid on. He handed me an invitation and I took it. I didn't need to do that. And that really robbed me of my spiritual fun. I mean, it took me a while to get back. It didn't just bounce right back.
Yeah.
And when I look back at it, I could tell that story in 15 ways where people would just be right on my side. Well, that's because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nope. I'm the one who invited the whole goddamn thing. And another thing about me that I know very well, and my family, we are know-it-alls. And I'm telling you what, I'm in line. Okay, you'll love this story. I'm in line with this kid, and he looks like a little Poindexter kind of kid, cutest thing ever. Had glasses on, little bitty. He was probably about 8, and he's in line behind me, and we're all just in bathing suits. I mean, it's a huge, beautiful outdoor water park connected to the Comel River. And I say, hey, buddy, which one of these 2 chutes is the fastest? And he goes, the yellow one. I said, oh, good. Well, I'm riding the yellow one. Well, when you're by yourself, there's 2 chutes, but they only pick one person. So you either both go down together, or one on one chute, one on the other. And so we get ready to go up, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to go too. I'm going to go with you, but I'm taking the yellow. I said, no, you're not taking the yellow. You just told me the yellow was the fastest one. I'm taking the yellow. And I've been in line 20 minutes, so I ain't surrendering the fastest one. And he goes, that is not fair. And I looked at him and I said, well, buddy, you picked the wrong person to make that statement to. I said, It's not fair. What's not fair? I'm in line ahead of you. I asked you a question. Now you want to cut the line and you want to take the better tube while I take the slower tube. And by this point, the girl goes, "Who's next?" I go, "I am." And I'm taking the yellow tube. Now I'm not paying attention to all the adults behind me, but I thought, I don't really care. I'm going down the yellow tube. So I shoot down. Oh, and before I went on the yellow tube, I said, "Tell me what you think of if the yellow tube is the faster one." And he goes, "I'm going to yell it out to you." I said, "Well, do that." So I shoot down and I'm standing out waiting, and the yellow one was much faster than the other green one. And he comes down and he's screaming, "The yellow is faster." And then he comes shooting out of the tube. And I swear it was so doggone cute because I thought, "Oh, buddy," my daughter goes, "Oh, if you think she's not going to cut in front, she'll cut right in front of you. She has no mercy when it comes to this, if you're a kid or not." Charlie said the same thing. But I mean, to me, it was just, I love the line when he said, "That's not fair." It's like, well, oh, you've picked the wrong person to say that statement to. I'm ahead of you in line. Okay, fair doesn't even come to play with this thing,
That's so funny. I get that. I'm in the same boat.
Oh,
I would be doing the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, I swear, and I love talking to people. My daughter's always like, "Oh, my mother's over there talking to strangers," but I'm so much into divine appointment. I don't want to miss anything. But 10 and 11, they go hand in glove, right?
Yeah.
You can't do one without the other, and I just think it's so important to remember what the book is trying to keep us in. The disciplines of 10 and 11 are crucial, and they're easy to let up on.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I love the divine appointment concept. I tell you, what keeps coming in mind is I remember when I first got sober, and even like a year or so after, a couple years after I got sober, when I would read this, this on awakening, especially right here towards the end where it would say it works, it really does. I remember sitting there thinking it would just drive me nuts because I hadn't had, I was just asleep, right? And
yeah,
it was funny because my current sponsor, when we talk about agnostics, we talk about someone without a working, effective, experiential relationship with, right? And
sure, absolutely, current agnosticism.
Yeah, so it's crazy because now I can look at this and see thank God for the experience of when I go to the treatment center every week. I'm I always remind myself I'm dealing with 40 guys in here that have no clue what they're sitting in the middle of, right?
Yep, and absolutely.
It's so powerful just to have that conscious contact through the process. It's just a straight game changer whenever you realize this. Where it says it works, it really does. It really works. You have that experience. It's like, wow.
It really does. And that's the beautiful part of it all.
Yeah.
But you got to I guarantee the majority of Alcoholics Anonymous does not understand 10 and 11. I don't think they're purposely not doing it. I don't think they understand that they have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's that's the beauty of when you do stumble across 10 and 11 and you see people and you start to learn it. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of teaching. It's like, if you don't understand it, let me give it to you to the best of my ability and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people are like, "Thank you so much for showing me that."
Yeah.
Because it's like, "Hey, did you know?" And lots of times they go, "No, I did not know that."
Yeah, it goes
it's like,
back.
"Good, well, let me show you."
Yeah, how do you know what you don't know, right?
That's exactly right.
That's why it's so important to have these conversations to me and get it out there. Because if I not heard, I think the first time I ever heard someone talk, about the importance of 10 and 11, that I actually heard anyways, was Mark Houston. And then, from that, it was you and Charlie, and it was just like, man, what is this all about? Man, I need to get on this. Man.
Yeah, well, see, and to me, that is the big deal. Is I really believe people are not doing it with that attitude. I'm like, oh, they don't even know they have to.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, trust me. Most people are not choosing not to do 10 and 11. They don't know they have to.
Yeah.
The beauty of the fact that we have no leaders is wonderful. It does have a little bit of a downside when we hope everybody's getting what we're doing. But if we got to lean on God and trust that God knows what He's doing and how this whole thing's going to work out. where we're going to get to go and all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And at 3 years of sobriety, even when I first heard, Mark Houston and all that, it sounded good, and I finally eventually heard it. Life had to keep happening. I was like, holy crap, I need to start doing this, But I wasn't ready to hear it until I was ready to hear it,
You bet. I swear that's the how you know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it right there.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, Paul, it has been so great. And thank you so much for working with me on all of this scheduling and everything. I just really, I was telling somebody earlier, I said, I have fallen in love with doing this podcast. And you knew I did not have the greatest attitude coming in. And once again, proven so wrong at how fun this thing has been.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll come up with, we got one more date if you're cool with it. I'll send you some dates and you can just tell me what you want to do. And yeah.
Oh, that'll be great.
And
thank
go have
you
fun
so
with
much.
The family.
Will do. Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.